Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Babbling Books. My name is Elaine and today's video is about my kids' favorite picture books. I've been wanting to do this video ever since I started the channel. I'm really passionate about getting kids into reading and starting with picture books when they're little is just a great way to introduce the idea that books are fun, to encourage imagination, and just nurture a love of reading in children. So I have left out more popular books that everyone has probably heard of. That's not to say that some of these here are not well known, but things like Where the Wild Things Are, for instance, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I've left those out because most people have heard of them. So I just wanted to introduce maybe some books that you haven't heard of. And if you have, let me know, what your kids thought of them, because I would genuinely be interested. So these are not in any particular order. Some of them my son or daughter liked more than their siblings did. And to start with, and also, these are not maybe for, these are like, I would say more pre-K to first grade sort of a age group. I didn't include any books that are more towards like toddlers. Now, of course, you could read these to toddlers, but these books my kids particularly liked from ages like 4 to 8. To start with, this is the only nonfiction book that I've added to this stack, and that's the Invisible ABCs. Lean over. So my son loves anything that is science oriented. So this is one of his favorites, and it's basically The Invisible ABCs, Exploring the World of Microbes, and it's by Rodney P. Anderson, and it's basically the ABCs of microbes. So you have like, let me give B is for bacteria, and then it tells you about bacteria, and then there's the image on the other page. And it just goes through all kinds of just interesting little age-appropriate things for kids that have to do with science. And like J is for Jenner. So it talks about the smallpox vaccination. And I mean, this is probably you can see the image right here. That's probably the most disgusting thing in the entire book. So there's nothing in here that's really scary to kids. And it's just a great little introduction to science. And that's The Invisible ABCs by Rodney Anderson. And then after that, after saying I wasn't going to do any books that are mainstream, that's exactly what I'm doing. I really could not do this video without including the Berenstain Bears. And the reason is you have books like Trouble with Grown-Ups, The Gimmies, and Berenstain Bears and the Truth. These are just really great books that I found to be useful as a parent when my children and I were struggling with a certain issue, like telling fibs or going to the store and spending the entire time, asking for things and being upset in the store, things like that. And this is just a really good way to open up a discussion with your child about these issues. And I found them to be very, very helpful. I honestly did see improvement in these areas after we would read these books. So that's the Berenstain Bears, which like I just said, most people have heard of them. And then after that, I do have another nonfiction. This is a series of books, and we only have one. And this is called What If You Had an Animal Tongue? And there's an entire series of these. like animal hair, animal teeth, animal nose, animal eyes. And my daughter loves these. And to show you sort of what it's like, you take the idea of a particular animal. This one would be a tiger who it's grooming its young. And you apply it to what it would be like if a human had it. So here's this woman getting her hair styled by this lady's tongue. And there's all kinds of different animals. And it really just explores science. And it's really humorous. And the images are really fun. And my daughter loves these. And I do plan on getting more of these. But that's a pretty new addition. This one, Anamalia by Graham Base. My son loves all of these books, but this one is his favorite. So this is another ABC book. And each page, as you can tell from the title, Anamalia, focuses on animals. And the images, it's a huge book. The images are just really beautiful. So to read you an armored armadillo avoiding an angry alligator. B, beautiful blue butterflies basking by a babbling brook. Now, once we read this a few times, and it got to the point where he knew the book by heart, we started concentrating on finding other images in the picture that started with the letter. So A talks about alligators and armadillos, but if you look, there's like an abacus and an ace, an accordion, arches right there. So there's other images in the picture that also start with the same letter. So we got a lot of use out of this book. He loved it. I loved it. The whole, all of Graham Base's books are really, really fun. This one, Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hinks. I remember my teacher reading this to the class. And when I had my daughter, I remembered this book and decided that I needed to buy it. I did read it to my son as well. He enjoyed it, but he wasn't a huge fan of it. But my daughter loves Kevin Hinks books. So this one, Chrysanthemum, is about a little girl. Her name is Chrysanthemum. And it's her first day of school. And she's super excited to go and make friends and just do all of her assignments. And she gets to class and all the kids have names like Ashley and Jennifer and Jane and Jill and things like that. And they tease her because her name is so long and you're named after a flower. And her little heart starts to break. And she doesn't want to go to school anymore. And she doesn't want to be friends with these people. And she goes home and her mom and dad talk to her. And there's discussions about bullying. And it doesn't really get any better. And all of a sudden, they have a new art teacher. And the students just adore her. They think she's the most fabulous teacher they've ever had. And they find out that she's named after a flower. And that her name is oh so long. And how she thinks that Chrysanthemum's a beautiful name. And all of a sudden, the kids are just... their minds are opened. And they want to be named after a flower. Now, I will say, this book is not an open discussion about bullying. Because obviously, rather than discussing that their behavior, well, the parents talk to Chrysanthemum about it. But the kids at school who were doing the bullying, there's no discussion with them about it directly. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. But it still opens up discussion with your child about the way you treat others and being considerate of others and kind and things like that. So it was still a very good book. And that is Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hinks. We like all of his books. This is another one that I remember my teacher, Mrs. Wyatt, reading to us in 2nd grade. And I lucked out and found it at a half-price bookstore. And this is one of my son's favorite books. And that is Why Mosquitoes Buzz in People's Ears. And this is an African folk tale. And it's one of those books that builds on top of itself, like The Lady Who Swallowed the Bats. The Lady Who Swallowed the Bats, who swallowed the crows, who swallowed the pumpkin, like sort of it just, every page, it gets longer and longer. And the story starts, and it really takes off when a owlet is accidentally killed. Now, since these are for children, I'm going to show you the image. Obviously, you know, if that's something that would be distressing to your children, then I just want you to be aware. So there is it's hard to see. There's the picture of a branch falling on the owlet. And there's the mother owl coming back and finding, I'm trying to make sure there's no glare, the owlet, that her owlet has been killed. Now, it can get a little scary, like in this picture here, when like the owl is telling the story that the monkey killed my owlet. And this is the image that goes with the picture. I mean, you can see his face. But it's sort of a book that it handles responsibility. When you've done something, that you need to own up to that you've done it, and accept the consequence of your actions, sort of a book. And we just loved it. It's very rhythmic. The message is great. I want to say I started reading this to my son when he was 6, and he was, maybe about the first 15 seconds, he was a little upset about the owlet. But it wasn't traumatizing. And so anyway, that is Why Mosquitoes Buzz in People's Ears. This is a wonderful book that has stuck with me my whole life. Okay, so this one is on the list because my mother's name is Mabel. So when I found this book, Naughty Mabel, and it's about a French bulldog, I had to get it for my kids. And the author of this is Nathan Lane, the actor. He's been in a lot of things, but Stuart Little, Birdcage. And this is basically a book about a spoiled, rotten, excuse me, a spoiled, rotten French bulldog. But the message in the book is no matter how naughty Mabel is, no matter how many little turd butt things that she does, that her mommy and daddy will always love her. Which it's hard to see. Which I think is a wonderful message for children. So that's Naughty Mabel by Nathan Lane. My kids love this book. Mabel just, she's funny. She does things that is like, you know, kids do. Knocks food off the table at a party. Makes messes, you know, just little embarrasses her parents by letting out an atrocious fart while company is there. But I just think the message was great and the book was fun. So, okay. So I got this one for when I was homeschooling my kids last year, and I wanted to introduce poetry. And I knew from the get-go, having read to my son for many, many years, that I was going to have to find something pretty funny for it to hold my son's attention. So I came across this book, and it's called No More Poems by Rhett Miller. And the poems are very funny. But a word of warning, a lot of parents had issues with this book when I was looking at the reviews on Amazon, and I will tell you why. One of the poems is called Brotherly Love. Oh, One of my dog's hairs is just, okay. And I'll read you the first little section. Please don't push your brother out the window, little miss. I know he's asking for it. I'm quite aware of this. But if you push your brother out the window, he'll go splat. And once he's squished, there isn't any coming back from that. So a lot of people were like, this promotes like sibling violence, and making jokes about killing your sibling isn't funny. But I mean, it's like over the top ridiculous. So my kids didn't even take it seriously. Because I didn't take it seriously, and I don't feel like they've been traumatized. But they learned to enjoy poetry. We would sit down and I would tell them that, you know, I would ask them, what do you guys want to start your reading with? And they would be like, you know, no more poems, no more poems, which is what I wanted. So I do recommend this. I mean, obviously, there's other poems in here, like Weirdos of the World Unite. And if I read the last section, you'll understand what a wonderful message this poem has. I thought we were outnumbered. One thing's becoming clear, though. Every single one of us, it turns out, is a weirdo. So we loved this, and I highly recommend it. I think it's a great addition to any family library. The King and the Seed. So this is based off of an old fairy tale. This one also has a really wonderful message. My daughter and my son both liked this one, but my son liked it the most. And this is about a king who has no... and by the way, The King and the Seed is one of those books where, I mean, you probably could find many, many, many different editions and retellings. So you don't specifically have to buy this one because there's a bunch. But anyway, The King and the Seed is about a king who has no children, and so there's no one to inherit his kingdom. So he decides to come up with a competition. And all of these knights show up, and they're all wearing armor, and they have their pages with them. And they're getting ready for this tournament, assuming there's going to be, like, you know, longbow competitions, sword fighting, jousting, that kind of thing. And this little peasant boy comes to the palace to watch. And the king has decided that the challenge is going to be to nurture and grow a plant from a seed, from a seedling. And the little boy decides that he's going to try too. And, you know, they kind of laugh and scoff at him. And he takes the plant home and he does all these different things. He waters it, he puts it in the sun, he puts it in the shade, he tries all these different things, and he can't make it grow. And the time comes to turn in the plant to show what you've done, and he's not going to go. And his parents tell him, you know, this is what you've done and you did your best and there's no shame in that, you should go. So he goes and he carries his little pot. It's just a pot of dirt. And all of the adults, the knights, have these just beautiful plants, these massive blossoms. They're bright. And the little boy becomes more and more embarrassed. And then the king shows up, and the little boy is not going to show the pot to the king. And one of the knights, to be a jerk, sort of pushes him to the king. And the king kind of looks over everything, and he beckons the boy to him. And the boy says, I'm so sorry, I tried so hard. And the king pulls the little boy to them, and he leans down, and he says, I don't know where all of these people bought these plants, but I boiled and salted them. They shouldn't have grown. And so the little boy becomes the heir to the throne because he was the only one that was honorable and truthful and noble, which of course is the message of the story. But both my kids really enjoyed it. This is one my son requested a lot. And so that is The King and the Seed. This is a recent addition from the book fair. So as you guys are, if you have kiddos or you buy for nieces or nephews, or if you just enjoy reading kids books, you have probably heard of this one. And it is We Don't Eat Our Classmates. So this is about a little dinosaur who is going to her first day of school, and she continuously tries to eat her classmates. And surprise, surprise, nobody wants to be her friend. You can see their little angry faces here. And you can see that Penelope is very sorry and embarrassed that she keeps eating her classmates. And then one day, Penelope, and here she is, sad and forlorn that nobody wants to be her friend, until one day, they get a class pet. And Miss Penelope sticks her finger into the goldfish bowl and chomp. And Penelope now knows what it's like to be eaten by a classmate. So from then on, she realizes what she's done. The whole idea of walk in someone else's shoes, treat people the way you want to be treated. My daughter loved this. I finished reading it and she was like, again, again, again. So this one's been a hit with our family. I've heard a lot of other moms say their kids really enjoyed this one. And that is We Don't Eat Our Classmates by Ryan Higgins. So that was a good one. Another one, this is another favorite of my son's, The Cloud Spinner, by Michael Catchpole. We own a few of his books. And if you can see, let's see if you can see in the artwork, it's kind of like a mosaic, and you can see there's little cracks in the artwork. And everything is done in these sort of sepia tones. So it's a very like textured illustration. So you can see the cracks. And these little cracks are through the entire, all of the illustrations. So this little boy, he has learned how to spin clouds into cloth. And he goes into town one day and he's wearing this beautiful scarf that he's made from the cloth he spun from a cloud. And the king sees it and tells the boy, bring me this cloth. And the little boy tells him, you know, you can't waste it. Oh, he actually has, it's a specific sentence. What is it he says? Oh, he tells him you do not need it. That's what he says. Because that was a lesson the little boy was taught by his mother, was that you only make what you need. But the king says, how dare you tell me what I need? How dare you tell me what's wise? And he orders him, make me this cloth. So the little boy goes home and he spins and spins and he brings His Majesty all of this cloth. And of course, all the clouds are gone. So there's this massive drought. The little boy can't do anything about it. All of the people of the kingdom are enraged. They're telling the king, do something, do something. And the king is like, I don't know what to do. And the little princess, who's been quiet this whole time and just kind of watching, she gathers up all of these just magnificent clothes that have been made from this cloth. And she takes it to the little boy and she tells him, fix it. And he shows her how to turn the clothes back into cloth and put it in the sky. And it's just sort of a magical story. It feels very much like a fairy tale. And I mean, you know, there's the whole question of like, you know, need versus want kind of thing. I can't honestly say that's ever what we talked about when we read this book, but my son really enjoyed it. And that's The Cloud Spinner by Michael Catchpole. And he has a lot of books like this where they're fantastical with those kind of illustrations. Another recent edition, beautiful. We just got this at the book fair. This is by Stacy McAnulty. I just love these illustrations of all these beautiful girls. And to give you an idea of what this book is about, it says beautiful girls know all about makeup. And as you can see, they've used that makeup to make themselves into pirates. And then it says, and they keep their hair properly in place. And as you can see, they're all a mess from playing in the water. I mean, it's just a wonderful, a little book about how girls are beautiful. And that doesn't mean that they're wearing, you know, dresses and long hair and makeup and being quiet and demure. This book is all about appreciating smart girls and a girl's intelligence and a girl's imagination and girls that are loud. And it's really inclusive. You know, there's all kinds of different girls in the book. Here's a girl in a wheelchair. And it's just a wonderful little, a book with a wonderful message, for girls. So we were a big fan of that one. My daughter loves it. Okay. So after that, I have, 2 series, and the first one is actually, I don't even know if the series has a name, but these are the 3 books. You have Journey, Return, and Quest. Journey is the first book. So that's the one I'm going to talk about. These are by Erin Becker. And it starts out with a little girl. You can see her sitting there on the stoop right here. And the whole book is in this tone. And no one will play with her. She's really bored and she's feeling kind of lonely. And she discovers this red crayon right there. And all of a sudden she uses this crayon to draw herself a door. And she's in another world. And she goes on an adventure in this world. And all of the images in red are things that she drew with her crayon. And as you can tell, there's no words in this book or in any of the 3 books. So my daughter, she makes up the story. And every time it's a little bit different. I mean, she uses the pictures for inspiration, but she changes things every time. And that to me, besides how beautiful the illustrations are, and I mean, obviously, the author, because he did such elaborate pictures, he did have a clear vision. But it's wonderful to watch her use her imagination and tell me these stories. So she's a huge fan of these series. And that's book 1 is Journey by Erin Becker. And then you have Return, which is the second book. And then you have Quest, which is the final book in the series. She loves these and I'm a big fan of them myself. So the next series, these are by James Joyce. And to be honest with you, I cannot remember anymore which, I don't really think they go in an order, but you have The Man in the Moon. Oh, I said James Joyce. I meant William Joyce. And then you have Jack Frost. Ooh, that's got gold foil. And then you have The Sandman. And these are so fantastical. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. There's lots of action. Bear with me for just a second. I mean, look how beautiful this is. It's really hard showing such large books. Okay, so here's the Man in the Moon as a little boy, and here's his mom and his dad, and here's his guardian, Jack Frost, and they're trying to keep him safe from this guy right here. Can you see him? I'm trying to block the, his name is, Pitch. The bad guy's name is Pitch, and that's his nightmare galleon. And anyway, so each one of these is like a fantastical adventure with characters that, you know, are as old as time. The Man in the Moon, The Sandman, Jack Frost. And I actually want to say there's another book. I think I'm missing one. But anyway, these are the Gaurdians of Childhood series. My son absolutely loves these. And to wrap it up, I want to talk about one author that I actually do not have his books. I loaned them to my mother-in-law, and I haven't gotten them back yet. And those are Chris Van Dusen's books. So My son is very like STEM oriented. He really likes anything that's robots, engineering, anything that's like building, or fantasy. Those are his two favorites. So Chris Van Dusen, he writes about imagination. So one of our favorites is right here, If I Built a Car. I'm going to try to put some pictures from the actual story. Hopefully I can find some online when I Google. But it's basically, they all look like they take place in the 1950s. It has that sort of a look to it. And this child is narrating and he says, if I built a car. And then he tells you what he would do. And you have like a conveyor belt of food. There's a robot that drives it. So if you want to pull the floor back, you can swim in the pool. And he has another one, if I built a school. And it's just, he encourages children to use their imagination and almost like don't leave it behind in childhood. Take it with you. It's the people who keep their imagination into adulthood that are the inventors, that are the entrepreneurs, that are the people who keep us going forward, which I think is a fantastic message for any child, but especially one that is really interested in things like inventing and discovery. He has another book called The Circus Ship, which is actually the first book we ever read by him. And this one is about a circus animals and the circus owner, and he's taking the animals to Boston for a show, and the circus owner is a jerk. And the captain of the ship is a very nice man, but the circus owner is yelling at him, and the captain makes a mistake, and they hit a rock, and all the animals have to swim to shore. And they go into this little town, and, you know, you have a tiger and an elephant and monkeys and, like, a python and a zebra. So you have, like, passive kind of, like, animals, and then you have, like, some scary animals. And the people of the town have a meeting. What are we going to do with these nuisances? And then one of the animals saves a child. So the town decides they're going to get together and they're going to hatch a plan to hide and protect these animals from the mean circus owner. And they do. The illustrations in all of his books are wonderful and they're very bright. And they're just a lot of fun. My kids love all of Chris Van Dusen's books. I love all of Chris Van Dusen's books. And I highly recommend them. I recommend all of these, really. And of course, I mean, like I said, we love Curious George. What is Mercer Meyer, the Little Critter series. We're a big fan of those too. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Where the Wild Things Are. I mean, so these are my recommendations for maybe some that you haven't heard of that I think are just wonderful for children, and maybe, just something different for you guys to try. So let me know if you have read any of these to your kids, what your kids thought of them, if you have any recommendations based off of, any recommendations at all, really. I mean, we're always looking for a good story around here. But thank you very much for clicking on my channel. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope maybe you found something that you'd like to read. Bye.